Cold winds howled through the narrow alleys of the Valter 9 spaceport. The slums around the station were falling apart, metal panels hanging loose, lights flickering above piles of old tech and broken dreams. Cole walked slowly along the edge of a market that had already shut down for the night. His boots were worn out, his coat too thin, and the credit chip in his pocket held just one lonely credit. It had been a hard week. No work again. The cargo jobs were going to newer, stronger bots now. Cole was just another human left behind, a war veteran the galaxy had forgotten. He had planned to spend his last credit on a hot drink, just one warm cup before facing another cold night inside the junk crate he called home. But something made him stop. By the edge of the wall, behind some broken crates, he saw movement. A figure curled up tight, shaking under thin scraps of cloth. As Cole stepped closer, he saw a young alien woman holding a small child in her arms. Her skin was a soft blue-purple, her cheeks pale from the cold. The child wasn't moving much, too tired or too cold to cry. The woman looked up slowly. Her eyes met Cole's, tired, scared, and full of silent pleading. She didn't ask for anything. She just held her child tighter. Cole stood frozen for a moment. The wind bit into his neck. Then, without saying a word, he turned and walked back toward the last stall still open. It sold basic supplies, nothing fancy. He placed his last credit chip on the counter and pointed to a thermal blanket hanging on the side. The vendor raised an eyebrow but handed it over without comment. Cole walked back and knelt beside the woman. She didn't speak his language, but she understood the gesture. Carefully, he wrapped the blanket around both mother and child. The woman gasped softly as warmth returned to her body. She looked up at Cole, eyes now filled with something else, gratitude. She spoke one quiet word in her language. Cole didn't understand it, but he felt the meaning. He nodded, gave a small smile, and stood. He walked away into the shadows, back toward his own cold shelter. His stomach was empty. His body was shaking. But somehow, his heart felt warm. Later that night, while lying under a pile of rags in his crate, Cole thought about the look in her eyes, the quiet strength, the silent thanks. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But in a world where kindness was rare, he had given something he couldn't afford. And maybe, just maybe, that would matter. The next 2 days passed slowly. Cole tried to find small work, cleaning solar panels, fixing scrap doors. But most shopkeepers didn't even look up when he asked. Food was harder to come by. He chewed on dry ration cubes, saving the last, one for later. The nights were the worst. Cold crept in like a shadow. His shelter, made from broken shipping crates and metal sheets, did little to keep out the freezing wind. He wrapped himself in old clothes and tried to sleep, but his thoughts kept returning to the alien woman and her child. He didn't expect to see her again. On the third evening, just as the artificial sun dipped below the horizon, a soft knock echoed on the metal panel outside his crate. Cole sat up quickly. No one ever knocked here. He pulled aside the sheet covering the entrance and looked out. It was her. The alien woman stood there, holding a folded cloth bundle in both hands. Her child clung to her side, now wrapped warmly in the same thermal blanket Cole had given them. The woman looked nervous, her large eyes scanning the area. Then she held out the bundle. Inside were a few small pieces of dried fruit, and what looked like a piece of clean fabric, stitched together from scrap but carefully made. "For you," she said softly, her voice accented but clear. Cole blinked in surprise. "You speak common?" She nodded slowly. "Little, learned from husband." Cole hesitated. Then he stepped aside and gestured inside. "Come in. It's not much, but at least it's dry." The woman stepped in quietly, her child close, behind. Cole helped them sit on an empty crate. He offered a small container of water. She accepted and shared it with her child first. "My name's Cole," he said after a moment. The woman looked at him, then placed her hand over her chest. "Nyari." Cole repeated the name softly. It fit her. Gentle, simple. They sat in silence, for a while. Nyari glanced around the shelter, noting how poor it was. Still, she gave a small smile. You gave us warmth. We give thanks. Cole nodded, feeling awkward but touched. Nyari placed the cloth on the ground. It was a hand-sewn mat, thin but warm. You sleep on cold floor, she said. Now better. He couldn't stop a quiet laugh. You fixed this yourself? Yes. I sew. Was cloth worker. Before. Cole nodded slowly. The silence returned, but it wasn't heavy. It felt peaceful, like the beginning of something unexpected. As the cold winds howled outside again, the three of them shared warmth, food, and something more important, trust. In that moment, Cole didn't feel as alone as he had before. The days grew colder on Valter 9. The wind carried dust and ice, and the slums shook from distant thunder. Cole heard from a trader that a strong energy storm was coming, worse than any seen in years. The outer districts weren't safe. Old. Shelters would not hold. Cole's crate was already bending from the last storm. He looked up at the metal roof, worried it would collapse. He didn't know where to go or what to do. That evening, Nyari came again. She wore layers of patched clothes, her child wrapped tightly in the thermal blanket. Her face looked serious. Storm comes, she said. You can't stay here. Cole nodded slowly. I know, but where else? Nyari looked around, then leaned closer. I found place. Old tower, empty. Strong walls. Come. Cole hesitated. He had never followed anyone in this city. Trust was dangerous. But he looked into Nyari's eyes. They were clear, honest. He nodded. All right, lead the way. Nyari carried her child, and Cole followed her through narrow alleys and broken paths. The wind howled above them. The sky flickered with flashes of light. Blue, purple, then orange. The storm was coming fast. After 20 minutes, they reached a ruined communication tower. Most of its top was broken, but the lower levels remained strong. Nyari led him through a side door hidden behind metal sheets. Inside, it was dry and quiet. A small fire already burned in the corner. Blankets were laid out. The air was warmer here. You found this? Cole asked, surprised. Yes. I search. I fix small things. Make safe. He sat down near the fire, rubbing his hands. It's perfect, Owen. Nyari smiled gently. Her child yawned, curling up on the blankets. Nyari sat beside Cole, careful but close. Outside, the storm hit hard. The tower shook slightly, but it held. Wind screamed through the ruins, but nothing reached them inside. Hours passed. The fire crackled. Cole and Nyari shared some food, dried roots and old ration packs. They talked softly. Nyari told him about her home planet, now destroyed by war. Her husband had been a builder, kind and patient. He died during a protest when soldiers opened fire. I came here with hope, she said. But life is hard. Cole nodded. Same here. Earth left me behind after the war. I came for work. Got nothing. Silence followed. But this silence was warm, not empty. As the fire dimmed, Nyari placed another blanket over the child and leaned back. She looked at Cole, her voice soft. You helped me when no one did. You helped me too, he replied. That night, for the first time in years, they slept under the same roof, not as strangers, but as two souls who had found comfort in each other. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, they had peace. Night covered the city like a heavy curtain. The storm outside shook windows, rattled doors, and echoed across metal walls. But inside the old tower, the fire kept burning. Its soft light danced across the walls and warmed the small space where Cole, Nyari, and her child rested. Cole lay on one side of the blanket mat, staring at the ceiling. The fire crackled quietly beside him, but he couldn't sleep. Memories from the past crept in like shadows. Memories of Earth, of war, of friends lost in battle. He had seen too much, felt too much. Now he was just a forgotten name in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. A sharp breath escaped his lips as another nightmare pulled him deeper. His body tensed. He saw flames, heard explosions, and the sound of voices calling for help that never came. Then suddenly, a gentle hand touched his arm. "Cole?" Yari's voice was soft, worried. His eyes flew open. Sweat clung to his forehead. He looked at her, blinking as the nightmare faded. "You were shaking," she said, kneeling beside him. "Bad dream," he muttered. "From the war." Nyari didn't speak for a moment. Then she slowly sat beside him. "I know that feeling." Cole looked at her. "You?" She nodded. "I dream of the night my husband died. I see soldiers. I see fire. I hold my child and run." They sat quietly together, listening to the wind outside. Nyari reached over and pulled one of the thicker blankets around both of them. "Cold returns quickly here," she said, her voice calm. Cole smiled weakly. "You really are prepared for everything." She tilted her head. "I had to learn for my child." He nodded, then asked, "Do you ever miss your home?" Nyari looked at the fire. "Every day, but I don't cry anymore. I must stay strong." Her words touched Cole deeply. She had lost everything, yet she still gave comfort. She still helped others. He felt something stir in his heart. Respect, admiration, something more. Nyari turned to him. "You gave your last coin for someone you didn't know." "You looked like you needed it more," Cole replied. She gave a gentle smile. That day changed everything. Cole didn't know what to say. The blanket between them was warm, so was the feeling growing in his chest. Nyari leaned back slowly, resting against the wall. "Sleep now. I'll stay close." Cole hesitated, then lay beside her. Their shoulders touched lightly. The fire crackled one last time before fading to soft embers. For the first time in years, Cole didn't feel alone in the dark. And for the first time, the cold wasn't the only thing warming his heart. The storm passed after 3 days. When the wind finally calmed, the world outside the tower looked different. Buildings were damaged, market stalls had collapsed, and people wandered the streets looking for food, shelter, or someone they had lost. Cole and Nyari stepped out together with her child. The cold was still sharp, but the air felt fresh again. They needed supplies, water, batteries for light, and maybe something better to eat than ration cubes. The city was more dangerous. Now, desperate faces filled the streets. In times like this, people fought over scraps. The news spread fast. A new mineral vein had been found near the edge of the district. That meant trouble. Gangs, scavengers, and bounty hunters all wanted a piece of it. Cole kept a close eye on Nyari and her child as they moved through the crowded alleys. He found an old vendor selling dried roots and sealed water packs. Cole traded a few metal parts he had collected over time. It wasn't much, but enough, for a couple of days. As they returned to the tower, Cole noticed something strange. 2 men standing near the path, watching them closely. Both wore dirty jackets and had weapons hidden beneath. Nyari pulled her child closer. Cole placed himself between them and the strangers. "Keep walking," he whispered. But later that night, trouble found them. Cole had just finished repairing the door to the lower level when he heard a crash. Someone was trying to break in. He rushed upstairs to find Nyari holding her child, fear in her eyes. "Stay back," he told her. He grabbed an old iron pipe and stepped toward the door. It burst open, and the same 2 men from earlier entered. "Nice place you got here," one of them sneered. "We heard you've been sharing with an alien widow. Thought maybe she has something worth taking." Cole didn't answer. He swung the pipe hard, hitting one man in the arm. A short fight broke out. Cole wasn't as strong as he used to be, but he had experience, quick moves, sharp eyes. He fought like a soldier again. The attackers didn't expect resistance. After a few painful blows, they ran off into the night. Cole stood in the doorway, breathing hard. Blood dripped from a cut on his arm, but he was still standing. Nyari rushed to him, eyes wide with worry. She gently helped him sit and cleaned the wound using old cloth and boiled water. "You could have been hurt badly," she said quietly. "But I wasn't," he replied. "I'll always protect you both." Nyari looked at him for a long moment, then placed her hand softly over his. "You are more than just kind," she whispered. That night, Cole didn't sleep alone. Days passed after the fight, and peace returned to the tower. Cole's arm healed slowly. Nyari changed his bandage every day, always with care in her touch and calm in her voice. Her child, once shy and quiet, now smiled when Cole entered the room. They were no longer strangers. They were something closer, something that felt like family. Cole began improving the tower with whatever scrap he could find. He fixed broken panels, sealed windows with plastic sheets, and connected a small solar panel on the roof. Nyari helped by sewing curtains from old cloth and cooking simple meals using heat stones. Together they turned the ruined space into a small home. One evening, after a long day of fixing wires and collecting clean water, Cole sat on the floor near the fire. Nyari brought him a warm bowl of broth made from roots and herbs. They ate quietly. The child was already asleep in the corner, wrapped in soft blankets. "This place feels different now," Cole said softly. "Less like hiding, more like living." Nyari nodded. "Because we are not alone anymore." Cole looked at her. "You could have survived without me." Nyari shook her head. "Maybe I could have, but I would still feel cold, even with fire." There was silence for a moment. Not the empty kind, but a peaceful one. "You changed my life," she added, looking into his eyes. "That night, the blanket, I thought it was just kindness, but it was more." Cole smiled slightly. "I didn't know what I was doing. I just saw someone who needed help." Nyari reached out and gently touched his hand. "And you gave help, without asking for anything." Her fingers were warm. The firelight reflected in her eyes. Cole didn't move. "Maybe I was the one who needed something, but I didn't know it." Nyari's face softened. She moved, closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "Now you have it. A place, a family, warmth." He let out a slow breath. It was true. In this ruined world full of danger and cold, something good had found him. Something real. That night, they sat beside each other by the fire until sleep pulled them into silence. And when they finally lay down, Nyari curled beside him without fear or hesitation. No words were needed. Their hearts understood what their voices did not say. In a galaxy full of war, hunger, and pain, a single act of kindness had become something more powerful than either of them expected. It had become love. Weeks passed, and the tower no longer felt like a shelter from the world. It felt like home. Cole woke up each morning to the quiet sound of Nyari preparing food and the soft laughter of her child playing with broken tools and wires. The cold was still there, but it no longer reached his heart. The blanket he had once given now hung neatly by the wall, clean and folded. They didn't need it as much anymore. They had each other. Nyari had started teaching her child to speak a little of Cole's language. In return, Cole learned a few simple words from her native tongue. Their small world had its own rhythm now, gathering supplies, cooking meals, telling quiet stories under the stars, and laughing together like they had forgotten how lonely life used to be. One day, Cole returned from a long walk through the outer market. He had managed to trade an old circuit board for a small heater unit. It wasn't much, but it would keep the room warm during the coldest nights. When he stepped into the tower, Nyari turned to greet him with a bright smile. Her eyes sparkled. "You found it?" she asked. Cole nodded. "Took some work, but yes, they set it up together," and soon a soft warmth filled the room. Nyari sat beside him and gently rested her head on his shoulder. "You always bring warmth," she whispered. Cole looked at her. "You gave it first. That night in the storm, I think you saved me more than I saved you." She smiled again. "We saved each other." They sat there in silence for a moment, watching the heater's soft light glow. Then Nayari reached into a small cloth bag and pulled out something wrapped in old paper. "I made this," she said, handing it to him. Cole opened it carefully. Inside was a hand-stitched scarf, made from patches of different cloth, each one clean and colorful. "For your neck," she said. "You always forget to cover it." Cole touched the scarf like it was something precious. "Thank you, Nyari." She looked at him, eyes soft. "I have nothing rich to offer, but I can give you warmth, not just of the body, but of the heart." Cole gently took her hand. "That's all I've ever wanted." That night, as the heater glowed and the stars shone through a cracked window, they lay beside each other not just for comfort, but because they belonged there. The cold world outside could not touch them anymore, because she didn't just warm his bed with her presence. She warmed his life with her love. And in a galaxy full of darkness, that was more powerful than anything.